profession. I'm a livestock officer, trained at Egerton University in animal production. I've worked as a livestock officer since 2011. My first posting was in Lamu East, the middle of the Indian Ocean. That's where I worked. Then in 2013 I came to Machakos. That's after devolution. And then I worked in places like Kangundo, Matungulu, and currently I'm in Machakos. We got some adverts about scholarships. I'd already started my master's in livestock production systems, and therefore I was looking for research funds. We were requested to do a concept, in which case I did a concept paper, and I attended the interview, and I was successful. And therefore I was facilitated with research funds to conduct my research. My topic that I was researching on actually is diet selection, intake, and weight gain in sheep offered selected grasses in a cafeteria feeding system. Cafeteria feeding is like self-service, whereby I offered the sheep with a variety of grasses which I had selected based on some criteria, and now I was letting the sheep select what it wants to eat comfortably without forcing it. So that was the topic. I just wanted to understand why do they select, what do they select, and what the relationship between what they select and some parameters which are key in nutrition, like proteins, like energy, like digestibility. That is what I wanted to see. And then, because the experiment was broken into two, one part of the experiment was actually about selectivity of different grasses. The other portion, I was looking at how I selected some grasses from the ones I was using. Then I subjected them to some other sheep to see how these sheep are putting on weight. For phase one of the experiment, selectivity part of it, I used 6 grasses. 2 of these grasses were humid, and 4 of these grasses were semi-arid. But then these grasses, the 6 of them were grown in one ecology. I grew these grasses in semi-arid areas. Precisely, I grew them in Kambu area, that is Kibwezi, Park Makueni. So I grew all the grasses there, both the humid and the semi-arid grasses. I grew them there. I took care of them, and I harvested them, I baled them. And then on the 3rd month, because there was a continuous rain, I harvested, I brought them to Machakos. Then I was using the Dopa sheep, because when you look at Dopa, it's a breed which is really, let me say it's climate smart, based on its growth rate, the way it converts feed resources. It's a very efficient utilizer of feed resources, the way its demand is on the increase. So I had to use Dopa because I'm using grass. All the Dopa were between 12 and 18 months. They were young and growing, and all of them were males. So that I wanted them when they are growing, so that I can identify any change in growth. Because if I use very old ones, whose growth is actually reached plateau phase, it will be very difficult for me to identify those slight changes in weight. How do I collect this data? Each Dopa was housed individually. I used 5 of them. Each Dopa was housed individually in a pen of 5 by 3. I installed CCTV cameras to monitor what this Dopa is doing and to monitor the kind of feed it is eating. Each Dopa was offered 6 grasses, all the 6 grasses, and in a flexible or portable feed troughs. And then another feed trough was introduced, was fixed to the pen for water. So the CCTV camera could capture what is this grass the dopper is eating and for how many minutes. Because I was timing of this grass, which grass has the sheep spent most time eating. So in the morning, once I offer the feeds, I was collecting the data. Then in the afternoon, once I offer the feed, I was collecting the data. So this data was the number of times a certain feed is visited. Why is the sheep keeping on coming to eat this food? And there are so many other grasses there. Why is it every other time coming to eat this grass? Secondly, how many seconds was each feed eaten? Some feeds were eaten more, for more seconds than the other feeds. What is it which is making this sheep keep on eating or stay on that feed and not the other feeds? Then the other data I was getting there is how much has that sheep eaten. So I was offering known quantity of feed. Then in the afternoon I was adding on to that. Then in the evening, after they have eaten, I was getting the following day before introduction of any other feed, I was removing that feed, I weigh the remnants. So I subtract from the original, they offered. The difference, then I use the difference to calculate the amount eaten. So that is the data I was getting. Then from the amount of feed eaten, I was calculating something we call selectivity index. Selectivity index, because I'm working on selection, diet selection, selectivity index here is actually, there is a formula that you use to calculate it. But basically it's the proportion or the amount of a particular grass in the diet, because the diet there is of 6 grasses. So how much of this grass has been eaten? So that is now what we are using to calculate selectivity index. The proportion of a particular grass in the diet relative to the proportion of that grass in its availability. So that is selectivity. The factor that I got there, if it is positive, if it is negative. So some of the grasses are negative, some other grasses are positive. So now the grass that I related all these factors. So the grass that had a lot of intake, that was eaten for more seconds, that the sheep kept on going back to it, is the grass that had the highest selectivity index. And then following that, now I went further now for phase A to analyze the lab. I went to the lab to analyze this data to see how does it relate, the lab chemicals, the chemical compounds or in this grass, how do they relate to what I've observed? Does the grass, which is being eaten more, does it have more nutrients? The grass which is eaten more, is it highly digestible? So that one I did in the lab, and then I carried the data analysis, I correlated, and it came out, it gave me results. In that phase 1 of my experiment, my research showed me that the grass that was highly selected had the highest level of crude proteins. You know, in quality, when we're talking of quality of feed, there are 3 major factors we look into: proteins, fiber, and digestibility. So the grass that was eaten more, the grass that the sheep took a lot of time eating, it is the same grass that was highly digestible. It is the same grass that had highest percentage of crude protein. And it is the same grass that had low fiber. Because fiber and proteins are inversely proportional. When the proteins are high, fiber is low, and vice versa. And digestibility also is not proportional, is inversely proportional to fiber. This one now tells me, one, farmers can be advised that they need to do husbandry practices when they establish grasses so that they maintain good quality. Because if the grass is of good quality, sheep will like it. And therefore, when the sheep like it, then they will eat it, and it will put a lot of weight, to put weight on it. And that way, the production will be profitable. The productivity will be high of that sheep. So the grass, the humid grasses, didn't do well when planted in semi-arid conditions. And therefore, we are telling farmers that yes, all these grasses are good, but in different ecological zones. We just take it as a blank statement that such and such a grass is good, so we plant everywhere. No. Each grass, each category of grass is good in a particular kind of condition. And a very good grass in humid conditions, farmers in semi-arid condition, if they establish it, it may turn to be even the worst. And that's why we are saying, from the results I got, it was very categorical that some grasses I was using from humid and they were established in semi-arid conditions, they didn't do well. If these recommendations are adopted, then one will have a cheap source of keeping our sheep. It will be cheap because we'll establish grasses ourselves, and we'll establish grasses that we know they do better or they do well in certain environment. So we just establish those grasses, feed them to our sheep will like it, they'll eat it, and because we know this grass is good for that region, I know the sheep will put on weight and farmers will have a lot of meat, will have a lot of money in their pocket. The sheep I was using, we also promote it. I was using Dopa, and that is a sheep which is can convert poor quality feeds into meat. And so once farmer adopt this sheep and these grasses, then we'll have, it's a good breed, first because it grows very fast. It grows very fast. It's a breed which fetches more money because it's big in size, so it has a lot of meat. So once we adopt this breed and this grass, farmers will have a very good enterprise to run to, especially in the light of climate change.